Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Milifortic D100. This watch is available from miliforticwatch.com for $199 which is €172. This D100 is available in four versions: Black, Smurf, Hulk and Starbucks respectively. This is the black version. The Smurf version has a blue dial and blue bezel, the Hulk version has a green dial and green bezel, and the Starbucks has a black dial and green bezel respectively. The watch is clearly an homage to the Rolex Submariner date, reference 116610LN, a watch I have previously owned and reviewed on my channel. So firstly, let's look at the hard-shell travel case that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in this grey hard-shell Milifortic branded travel case, and it's secured with a zip, so I'll show you the interior. Inside we have a foam protective panel, and this does a good job of protecting the watch in shipping from any damage. In the base we also have this tanned strip which is made from vinyl or PU leather. Now you'll recognise this because Baltony also use it. So to clarify, Milifortic are the sister brand of Baltony. Baltony use this vinyl or PU leather strip inside their vinyl PU leather watch cases, and this serves a useful purpose. It goes in between the bracelet clasp and the case back, and it prevents the clasp from rubbing against the case back, scuffing and scratching it in shipping. So good to see Milifortic also using this to protect the case back. In the base we also have a second foam protective panel, and in the underside of the lid we have an elasticated web pocket which houses the items I'll show you. I want to give due credit to Milifortic here because this hard-shell travel case is aesthetically pleasing and it is finished to a good standard, and they deserve credit for not using the less expensive default option of a plastic or cardboard watch box, bearing in mind this is a low tier price point piece at only €172. With regards to items that come with the piece, this is the plastic warranty card. On the reverse it's stamped with Milifortic Watch Company and the date of purchase and reference number are filled in. So like Baltony, they do actually fill in their warranty cards. Often low-tier Chinese brands do not fill in their warranty cards. For example, you will all be familiar with Pagani Design warranty cards which are blank, they never fill them in. But Baltony and Milifortic always do fill in the date of purchase, and they always stamp the warranty cards to activate the warranty from the date of purchase. Also want to give due credit to Milifortic here because this is covered by a 2-year international warranty. Often low-tier Chinese brands only cover their watches with a 12-month international warranty. To get 2 years of international warranty at the €172 price point in the low tier is very impressive, and they deserve full credit for that. One also gets this Milifortic branded microfiber polishing cloth. I always think it's a nice touch to get a branded microfiber polishing cloth irrespective of the price point of a piece. And one also gets this spring bar tool, 2 rubber caps. So at one end we have a 2-pronged spring bar tool, and at the other end we have a push pin, and this does suffice if you want to exchange the oyster style bracelet for an alternative strap, so good to get this included. And lastly, one also gets this 1.2mm jeweler's screwdriver, hardened tool steel tip which is removable. Nailed shank is well executed. Now to clarify, this does look like stainless steel, but it's not actually solid stainless steel. It's made from mild steel which is nickel plated to give the appearance of stainless steel, but nonetheless the nickel plating is done to a good standard. Rotating head to it which is nailed, and this sits into the palm of the hand, and therefore you can get good purchase on the nailed shank with your index finger and thumb and rotate it precisely, and this works very well when you're resizing the 1.2mm screw pins in the oyster style bracelet. So nice to get that included. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, as I've detailed, this D100 is clearly an homage to the Rolex Submariner date, reference 116610LN. So similar proportions. We have a 40mm case diameter. We have a lug-to-lug measurement of 48mm, a thickness of 12.2mm. Now, this is the dimension that I want you to pay particular attention to because it is very impressive, and Milifortic deserve full credit for this. This piece is incredibly thin, 12.2mm. So, to put this into perspective, the San Martin SN017G is 12.7mm, the Suges S421 Seaman is 12.6mm, and my Rolex Starbucks is 12.4mm respectively. At 12.2, this is thinner than them all, and it's an incredibly impressive achievement. San Martin could not do it with the SN017G, Suges could not do it with the S421 Seaman. They are thicker pieces. Usually to get a 200-metre dive piece down to 12.2mm, one would have to use a thinner calibre such as the HK Precision Technology PT5000, or alternatively the Miyota calibre 9015, which are thinner calibres than the Seiko NH35A respectively. This is the problem. San Martin could not do it with the NH35A. They could only get it down to 12.7. Suggest could not do it with the NH35A. They could only get it down to 12.6. Milifortic have done it, 12.2. This is an incredible 0.5mm thinner than the SN017G. It is 0.4mm thinner than the Suggest, and it's also 0.2mm thinner than my Rolex Starbucks. It is an incredible achievement. 12.2 for an NH35A powered dive piece with 200 meters. Milifortic deserve full credit for that. The benefit is this is lower profile, and that enhances the comfort level and the feel good factor. So, with regards to the rest of the specification, we have an oyster style bracelet with female porcelain links and the perfection personified taper of 20 to 16. Often referred to 20 to 16 as the perfection personified taper because it's the ultimate. It cannot be beaten. For a 40mm head of the piece, 20 to 16 looks good aesthetically, feels good, because it deletes a lot of the meat with the aggressive taper, and you can see it's just fantastic on a 40mm head of the piece. It cannot be beaten. 2-button push clasp, and we have 4 micro adjustment holes in the flanks. Longitudinal brushed satin finishing, has a beautiful luster, and it's signed with high definition engraving with a Milifortic text logo. Now, subjectively, one could be critical and say, well, the Suggest S421 Seaman has a superior glide lock style clasp, and one could say the San Martin SN017G has a superior 2-button push clasp because it's longer. But this is a similar clasp used by Baltony, and as I've detailed, Milifortic are the sister brand to Baltony. You'll recognise this clasp because Baltony use it on a plethora of their watches, such as their Datejust Homage, which I previously reviewed. I like this clasp because easy to get the micro adjustment. You can simply depress the spring bar and adjust it in the 4 micro adjustment holes. Now, yes, I would prefer if it was longer and it had 5 or 6 micro adjustments, but the point is, in the absence of half links, at the 6 o'clock and the 12 o'clock side in the oyster style bracelet, 4 micro adjustment holes does give enough adjustment. You have half a link of adjustment to fine tune the fit, because sometimes adding or subtracting one full link from an oyster style bracelet does not give the desired fit. The bracelet is slightly too tight or too loose. 4 micro adjustments gives you half a link of adjustment, therefore you can get the correct fit. The reason why I'm not going to be critical of it, and the reason why I like it, is because it's short and low profile versus the San Martin SN017G clasp, or alternatively the Suggest glide lock style clasp. This is particularly suitable for collectors with a smaller 6 to 7 inch wrist. Often with large micro adjustment clasp and glide lock style clasp, they have too much length. And the problem is there's overhang on it. So if you have a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches, the clasp is too long, it's too wide and too bulky. This is actually a nicely proportioned clasp because it's not too wide, it's not too long, and it's not too bulky. It's low profile, but it does suffice with the 4 micro adjustments. We have a flat sapphire crystal with clear AR coating on the underside, and the clear anti-reflective coating does an outstanding job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the glossy black enamel dial, the silver mirror polished Mercedes handset, and the silver mirror polished applied indices. So we've got this Submariner date maxi dial layout as per the 116610LN, and also the Mercedes hands are the same proportion as the handset used on the maxi dial, so correctly proportioned. I like the glossy black enamel dial, looks very similar to the Submariner date, which this is clearly an homage to. Hands are correctly proportioned. The pencil minute hand extends nearly to the white minute ticks on the chapter ring. The Mercedes hour hand is correctly proportioned. It extends nearly to the applied indices, and the second hand with the Lume pip is the right length because the tip of it extends just to the white minute ticks. So they've got the handset correctly proportioned. Legibility is good. Colour tone match is good. Now, to clarify, this Milifortic D100 has the edge over the Suggest S421 Seaman with regards to the quality of the BGW9U. So why do I say that? It's because they both have 5 to 6 layers. They've got the colour tone match better. The S421 Seaman has a more cream tone or lemon tone to the white BGW9 in daylight, and there's not the same perfect colour tone match between the indices and the Mercedes hands. The BGW9 does perform well because it's 5 to 6 layers, but the point is, in daylight on the Suggest it doesn't look pure white. It looks slightly cream on the indices and slightly cream on the handsets. Now in the dark they both have the same blue tone, so I'm not going to be critical of that, but Milifortic have done a better job because the colour tone match is perfectly white both on the applied indices and the Mercedes handset. They don't look lighter or darker, they don't look more cream or white. They've actually got the BGW9 colour match perfected, so it's better done. There's something else which gives this the edge over the Submariner, and it's the bezel. So ceramic bezel insert is inlaid with silver paint. Now, to clarify, Rolex do not use paint on their Cerachrome bezels. They inlay the Cerachrome, which is ceramic, with platinum. And platinum has a silver grey finish to it, which is dull. It's matte. It's not shiny and reflective like silver. It's actually like a matte metallic grey. And it's very difficult for homages to the Submariner date to get that correct, because if they use white, obviously white paint is too white, and this is something that San Martin do with the SN17G. They use white paint on the engraving on the ceramic bezel, and of course the white looks too bright. Also, same applies to other Submariner date homages such as the Pagani design PD1661 and the SD1953. Now with the SD1953 it's inlaid with BGW9, but again it looks white, and this never looks accurate, it never looks true to the original, which it is an homage to the Submariner date 116610LN. This has the edge over it because if you look at the paint which is inlaid into the ceramic, it's got a grey silver look to it, but it's matte, it's not too shiny. So they didn't just use silver paint which is very shiny and reflective, they didn't just use grey paint which is very dull and matte finished. It's got a metallic sheen to the grey paint, so it's like silver grey. And this does visually look very similar to the platinum inlay in the Cerachrome bezel used on the 116610LN Submariner date. So it actually visually looks more aesthetically pleasing, but it looks closer to the Rolex Platinum used on Cerachrome. So I think they've done a better job of it. The other thing that's better done on this bezel insert than the San Martin SN017G is the font. If you look at the Arabic numerals, on the San Martin SN017G, the font is thicker. The Arabic numerals are engraved with high definition, but they're actually wider. The Arabic numerals are thicker, and then they inlay them with paint, and this does not look as high definition and crisp. Submariner do it better with the S421 Seaman because they use the same font as Rolex. It's finer, it's thinner. Therefore the engraving is sharper, it's more high definition and crisp. This has the same fine font as per Rolex. The Arabic numerals are finer, the definition is sharper, but of course, because they've inlaid it with a silver grey paint versus white paint, it really does give the impression or the same high quality level look as a Rolex Cerachrome bezel which is inlaid with platinum versus paint. So this is better done. Head to head, I would say this has the edge over the Submariner because the quality of the silver grey paint looks more like platinum. Quality of the engraving is sharper, it's more high definition crisp. This bezel looks closer to a Rolex Cerachrome bezel with platinum. So excellent. So bezel is solid 316L grade stainless steel. Nice large mirror polished chamfer which deletes the sharp tips to the scallop teeth. Scallop teeth are correctly proportioned and they are brushed satin finished to a high standard. So grippy and tactile but not sharp. The tips of the scallop teeth don't dig into the index finger and thumb. Looks like a Rolex bezel, feels like a Rolex bezel. I like the flat sapphire crystal where it has a large bevel which projects above the top edge of the flat ceramic bezel insert, and it's beautiful the way the bevel catches the light. AR coating works well. Case is solid 316L grade stainless steel, longitudinal brushed satin finishing to the tops of the lugs, and that contrasts with the flawless mirror polishing to the flanks. One thing I like about this piece, and you know the thickness is the obvious 12.2, but the flanks are very slender and low profile. This looks like a Rolex case. This really does visually look very similar to the 116610 LN case, which is referred to as the maxi case because it has thick lugs. So what I like about it is, and this is again what gives this the edge over the San Martin SN017G, the Pagani design PD1661 and the Steel Dive SD1953 respectively, is how slender, how low profile the flanks are. This is not a thick slab of 316L grade stainless steel. It doesn't have block-sided or slab-sided flanks. They're very low profile like a Rolex Submariner date. Curvature of the undercuts to the flanks is correct. It's got a nice gradual curvature. Now, they've deburred and chamfered the undercuts to the flanks. This is particularly beneficial. It's a negative that often exists with San Martin SN017Gs. They have a sharp transition, and this crisp edge on the undercut to the flanks is often sharp with San Martin SN017Gs, therefore it scratches the wrist. You'll all be familiar with that. But the quality of the finishing to this Milifortic D100 is on a higher level than the SN017G because they've deburred it. It doesn't have that sharp edge. Now, it does have a crisp transition, but it doesn't have that sharp edge. It doesn't scratch the wrist because they have machined a large bevel. Just bear with me, I'll open the bracelet and show it to you closer. On the undercuts to the flanks, they have machined a large bevel, and this runs the full length of the case from one tip to the other tip. And the benefit of this, and this is something that San Martin do not do as well on the SN017G, Suggest do it on the S421. This large bevel, which is mirror polished, this deletes the sharp edge on the undercuts to the flanks. So the benefit is it enhances the comfort level and feel good factor. The case doesn't scratch the wrist, it doesn't feel abrasive, it doesn't feel sharp. This is smoother. This is better. Are there any negatives to the finishing? Yes, there is one that I want you to be mindful of. Now, the four tips of the lugs, the corners, have sharp corners. This is something that Suggest do better on the the S421 because they deburr and chamfer. They put bevels on the tips of the lugs, and this deletes the sharp corners. This does have sharp corners, but on a positive note, when it's on wrist, the sharp corners of the lugs are not in contact with the wrist, so therefore they don't scratch the wrist. It's not a problem, but it's something I want you to be mindful of. It's the one area of the case finishing they could refine. They simply need to machine bevels or chamfer the tips of the corners. It's similar to, in terms of sharpness of the corners, it's similar to the points or the corners on a San Martin SN017G. I would regard it as equal finishing to the corners. But the undercuts to the flanks are done to a better level, a higher level than the SN017G, equal to the S421. So, let's look at the bracelet and clasp in detail. Oyster style bracelet. Now, again, what we're looking at is correct decision after correct decision because they have used female operated end links versus male end links. This is particularly beneficial if you have smaller wrist sizes of 6 to 7 inches because the end link in the Oyster style bracelet can articulate and pivot beneath the tips of the lugs, so this gives a very snug fit. What I like about this, and I'll detail this in the wrist shots, is the proportions of this case are perfection personified. 48mm exactly, the perfect sweet spot lug to lug, and you'll know from my previous reviews, and I'll clarify this in the wrist shots. 48 is the perfect lug to lug because it fits all wrist sizes. It's the sweet spot. It fits 6 to 7 inch wrists perfectly. It fits 7 to 8 inch wrists perfectly. 48 lug to lug is the perfect sweet spot. 20mm lug width is correct. And of course, female operated end links with the perfection personified 20 to 16 taper. The proportions of this piece are perfection. So, female operated end links articulate freely, don't feel stiff or kink, which is good. Don't have excess play, lateral, longitudinal, side to side, up and down play. This is better than the SN017G, more refined, higher quality. Equal quality to the refinement of the Suggest S421. So, bracelet articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. Excellent, feels nice and smooth. In terms of quality, it feels equal to the S421. I would say it's a level above the S017G, which has more play in it. This feels tighter. So I would say it's in between. It's better than the SN017G. It feels smoother. And I would say it's equal to the S421 bracelet. Doesn't rattle. It's not sloppy. Feels nice and tight. In terms of the finishing, it is stellar. Longitudinal brushed satin finishing to the top side and underside, and that contrasts with the flawless mirror polishing to the flanks. The luster is nice and fine. It's like Rolex finish, and I really like the fine grained satin finishing. Beautiful luster to it. In terms of finishing, I would regard it as equal quality to the finishing on the SN017G and also the S421. They are equal. And just absolutely beautiful fine satin finishing. It really does look like Rolex 904L Oyster Steel. The luster is fantastic. No sharp edges. This is the important thing I want you to be mindful of. No sharp edge to the top edge or the low edge of the flanks, therefore it doesn't scratch the wrist. It's better finished than the SN017G San Martin bracelet, because often their oyster style bracelets have crisp edges, crisp transitions. Problem is they're very sharp and they're not deburred and chamfered to an acceptable standard. So San Martin oyster style bracelets often feel sharp. This one doesn't. It's got a larger chamfer to the top edge and the lower edge of the flanks. This enhances the comfort level and the feel good factor because we don't have that sharp edge one often gets with an SN017G oyster style bracelet. In terms of sharpness or how smooth it feels, it's equal to the deburring and chamfering on an S421. So excellent. Doesn't pull arm hairs, articulates freely. Let's check the other side for continuity. Again, female Putillen link articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, good amount of articulation. Doesn't have excess play, longitudinal, lateral, side to side, up and down play. Interference, friction, fit is good. Articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, feels slightly tighter than the San Martin SN017G. I like it, feels more refined, feels smooth. Doesn't rattle, doesn't feel sloppy, that's good. Doesn't pull arm hairs, no sharp edge to the top edge or the low edge. In terms of the three bracelets, SN017G, this one, the D100 and the S421, I regard this as equal overall to the S421. It's a level above the SN017G in terms of finishing. Let's look at the clasp. So, as I've detailed, one could say the S421 has the edge over this because it has a glide lock style clasp, which is more like the glide lock clasp used on the Rolex Submariner date. I would like to see Milifortic update this or upgrade it to a micro adjustment clasp with a ratcheting mechanism, alternatively a glide lock style clasp as per the S421. Alternatively, they could simply lengthen the solid mill clasp and have 4 or 5 micro adjustment holes. I do like this 2-button push clasp. It works very well. It's very well finished. No sharp edge to the top edge or the low edge. 4 corners have been deburred very well, and the undercuts do not have any sharp edges. So it's comfortable. Profiling is good. 2-button push triggers are mirror polished and correctly proportioned, heavily sprung loaded. Solid mill 316L grade stainless steel internals, as one would expect. Beautiful lustre to the top side, underside and flanks. No sharp edges to the top edge or the low edge of the flanks. Centre section has been deburred, so no sharp corners. Let's check the hinge pins. Left hand hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. Doesn't have excess play, feels nice and tight, that's good. Centre hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. Doesn't have excess play, that's good. Right hand hinge pin, which is actually a spring bar, articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. Doesn't have excess play, nice and tight. Pleasant surprise. Excellent. So, in terms of execution, this is fantastic. Finishing is stellar. Beautiful, aesthetically pleasing brush satin finishing. 3 hinge pins, left hand, centre and right hand are all tight. Interference, friction, fits. Excellent. The only thing I'd like to see is an update with a micro adjustment clasp for on the fly adjustment. The other update I'd like to see with the V2 version is a half link on the 6 and a half link on the 12 o'clock side of the bracelet, because as I've detailed, adding or subtracting one for oyster style link doesn't often give the correct fit. Half links are beneficial, but quality is good, finishing is good. Right, so let's test the bezel execution. 120 click unidirectional bezel, as one would expect. Nice, loud, audible clicks. This sounds fantastic. It sounds and feels smoother than the SN017G bezel. The 120 clicks feel finer. They feel more like a Rolex bezel. So to put it into perspective, it feels very similar in terms of smoothness as the Suges S421 Seaman bezel. It feels lighter in terms of the sensation of the clicks. They're loud and audible. They sound good. They feel good, but they feel smoother and sound smoother. With the San Martin SN017G, they just feel rougher, the clicks feel heavier, and you can feel the click spring engaging in the grooves, the 120 grooves in the underside of the bezel, but the refinement just isn't there. It just feels rougher, feels more gritty. So this feels smoother, feels more like a Rolex bezel, feels very similar to the S421 bezel. It's got that light clicking sensation, medium resistance. So in terms of how it feels the same in terms of resistance as the SN017G. It doesn't feel lighter or heavier. Feels very similar to the resistance of the S421. Of the two, it feels more refined than the SN017G. It feels the same level of refinement as the S421. No lateral side-to-side play whatsoever, no back play whatsoever. So it feels nice and tight, but it does have medium resistance. Doesn't feel too heavy like a Steinhardt Ocean 139, which is too stiff. Doesn't feel too light either, like a Pagani designed PD1661 or a Steel Dive SD1953, which you'll all be familiar with. They have lighter bezel actions, but they feel rougher. They feel and sound rougher, like more gritty. This feels smoother, sounds smoother, nice loud audible clicks. It really does feel and sound more like a Rolex bezel. The refinement is there. This is a level above the SN017G. Milifortic are doing it to a higher level. The refinement. So, no lateral side-to-side play, no back play. Now, in terms of all the way through the 360 degrees, it doesn't get lighter or heavier. It feels smooth. It feels even. That's what I like about it. That's the refinement I look for, because with the SN017G, it feels slightly rougher, but the other thing is the resistance doesn't feel as even all the way through the 360 degrees. You can feel some slight difference. It gets slightly tighter and slightly looser. The S421 is better because it feels even and feels smoother. This does feel equal to it in terms of smoothness. I like the sound of it. I like the feel of it. Let's just check the alignments. One more click. Perfect. The Lume Pippin triangle perfectly aligned with a 60-minute tick on the chapter ring and the 12 o'clock index on the dial. This is excellent. They could not improve upon this. It feels refined. Equal quality overall to the S421. Feels more like a Rolex bezel execution compared to the SN017G. It's a level above it, and I like it. Feels tight, no lateral side-to-side play, no back play, perfect alignment, even all the way through the 360 degrees. This is an example to other low-tier Chinese brands of how to get bezel execution perfected. It is better than the Pagani Design PD1661. It is better than the Steel Dive SD1953. It is better than the San Martin SN017G. The only one it equals to, the only one it cannot better, is the Suges S41 Seaman, because that really is similar to Rolex level in terms of execution. It's excellent. Let's test the screw down crown execution. Solid 316L grade stainless steel crown, coin edge finished, mirror polished finishing to it, nice large chamfer which deletes the tips of the coin edge teeth. Mirror polished, and as you can see, engraved with high definition engraving with a Milifortic MF emblem. Excellent quality engraving, no sharp edges to the engraving, they've mirror polished it to perfection, correctly proportioned. The case profiling with regards to the crown guards looks the same visually as the Submariner Date 116610LN, which this is an homage to, so profiling of the crown guards is good. To clarify, the crown guards on the Pagani Design PD1661 aren't the correct size, they're not the correct proportions, because the crown they enlarged, and the crown guards look undersized and the crown looks oversized with a PD1661. Same applies to the SD1953. The crown and crown guards are not correctly proportioned. This is better proportioned, and it looks equally well proportioned to the SN017G and the S421. They've got it correct. So let's test the screw down crown execution. Silky smooth. This is sublime screw down crown execution. Minimal number of turns required, perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. This is silky smooth. The machining, the quality control, the tolerances are there. If I had to choose one word to describe it, it would be refinement. It's excellent. So, when it's fully unscrewed, we're now in the manual wind position, and one can manually wind the Seiko Caliber NH35A automatic to its maximum 41-hour power reserve. Feels smooth to manually wind, doesn't feel too stiff, doesn't feel rough or gritty. Feels smoother to manually wind than a PT5000, and I like it. One can feel the tension in the mainspring gradually building up, feels nice and smooth. Pulling it out to the first click position is the quickset date complication, and if you rotate the crown anti-clockwise, you can see the quickset complication clicks over with a nice heavy positive click. This is a characteristic I really like about the NH35A. The quickset date complication has a nice heavy solid feeling to it. Feels reliable and robust. The alignments of the single and double Arabic numerals are correct. The font is clearly legible. Font is similar to the font used by Rolex on the Submariner Date 116610LN, which this is an homage to. And I like the alignments. The single and double Arabic numerals aren't too far to the left or the right, and they're not too high or too low in the date window. Also, it has the correct 2.5 times magnification as per Rolex. Often with homages to the Submariner dates, the magnification is incorrect. For example, 1.5 times used by Steinhardt on the Ocean 139 is incorrect, and often low-tier Chinese brands like Pagani Design with the PD1661 and Steel Dive with the SD1953 have too much magnification. It's not the correct 2.5 times. This is exactly 2.5 times. The font is magnified, the Arabic numerals are magnified to the same magnification as a Rolex Submariner Date 116610LN. It's correct. White date wheel with black Arabic numerals contrasts very well. Nice clicking sensation, and the singles and the double Arabic numerals align correctly. Legibility is excellent, and it's got AR coating on the underside of the Cyclops magnifier as well as the sapphire crystal. Putting it out to the second click position hacks the movement, and if you look at the second hand, you can see it's now stopped dead. Therefore, it's possible to set the siren precisely to the second with the Seiko caliber NH35A automatic. So we're now in the time setting position. Feels smooth, both clockwise and anti-clockwise. Minimal friction to it, has 24 joules. One can feel the meshing of the gearing. Feels reliable and robust, doesn't feel stiff, and I like it. It feels nice and light, and this is very good. Minimal backplay. When you rotate the coin edge crown, there's an almost immediate response to the pencil minute hand. You don't have to take up a lot of slack, which is good. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and that restarts the movement. You can see the second hand begins to sweep around the dial at the characteristic 3 Hz sweep. Now, subjectively, one could say the negative of this being NH35A powered versus PT5000 or 9015 powered, respectively, is it has a stutter or judder, and that's just a characteristic of the NH35A because it runs at 3 Hz rather than the smoother sweep of 4 Hz. That's just the way it is. I personally prefer the aesthetic look of a 4 Hz sweep, and I like the smoothness of it, but of course that's just the way it is with the NH35A. One has to live with it, the stutter or judder of a 3 Hz sweep, because it runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour versus 4 Hz, which is 28,800 vibrations per hour respectively. Let's test screwing the crown back down. Instant thread pickup, there's a perfect interface. The threads mate perfectly. So the pickups of the internal thread and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube, they immediately pick up. So to clarify, you don't need to rotate the crown clockwise and anti-clockwise over and over again to get the threads to mate, to get them to pick up. They interface instantly. This is refinement. This is the kind of refinement I look for with a screw down crown. It's better than the Pagani design PD1661. It's better than the Steel Divesti 1953. It's equal quality to the San Martin SN017G, and it's equal quality to the Suges S41 Seaman. They also have silky smooth crowns. I would regard the refinement as equal to the aforementioned, but it's a level above Pagani design and Steel Dive respectively. So, excellent. Silky smooth, threads feel smooth, doesn't feel rough or gritty, doesn't feel too stiff, feels good to manually wind. Pickups on the thread are fantastic, silky smooth. Right, so I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, I haven't sized the bracelet, and I'm pleased to report this does come on a long bracelet. I can easily slide 2 fingers beneath the bracelet and clasp at all times. Now, bear in mind, I'm on the maximum extension of position 4 of 4 on the micro adjustments in the flanks. This is its absolute maximum extension. But you can see this would easily fit up to a very large wrist size of even 9 inches. So, there are enough removable links on the 6 o'clock side and the 12 o'clock side of the oyster style bracelet to size this down to a minimum 6-inch wrist size. So 6 inches is the minimum with all the removable links removed. 9 inches is the absolute maximum with it on its maximum position 4 extension. So, perfection personified taper. I often refer to it, and you can see the reason why it's the industry standard. 22 to 18 is one industry standard for larger pieces such as 41 and 42mm head of pieces. 20 to 16 is the industry standard for 39 and 40mm pieces, because you can see why. It cannot be beaten. It is the perfect taper. Looks good, feels good. Deletes a lot of the meat with the aggressive taper, so it feels balanced. Visually looks very aesthetically pleasing with a beautiful luster. And on a 40 head of the piece, 20 to 16 cannot be beaten. It is the perfect taper. Perfection personified. Beautiful luster. Nice fine grained satin finishing, and that contrasts with the mirror polishing to the flanks. As I've detailed, what I like about this bracelet, when it floats up and down the wrist, unlike San Martin SN017G bracelets, which often have a sharp undercut to the flanks, this does not scratch the wrist. It doesn't pull arm hairs. This feels smoother. Better quality finishing, equal to the S421, a level above the SN017G. Head of the piece. Now, proportions to the head of the piece are perfect, and I want to give due credit to Milifortic. This is a better proportion head of the piece than the SN017G, and it's a better proportion piece, the head of the piece, than the Suges S421 Seaman. The reason why I say that is it has the perfect sweet spot lug to lug of 48, exactly 48mm. Now, you'll know from my previous reviews, 48 is the sweet spot. Regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively, 48 is the perfect sweet spot. That is why it's used by so many brands, because it fits all wrist sizes. And it just gives the perfect fit regardless of wrist size. So for a 40mm head of the piece, 48 lug to lug is the perfect sweet spot. It is exactly correct. The other thing is 20mm lug width is correct. Now, as I've detailed, the one dimension I want you to be particularly mindful of, I want you to pay attention to, is the most impressive dimension, 12.2. This is one of the thinnest 200-metre dive pieces I have reviewed on my channel. I have reviewed hundreds of dive pieces over the last 5 years. I've reviewed over 500 watches. This is one of the thinnest 200-metre NH35A powered pieces I have reviewed. The comfort level and feel good factor of this piece are stellar. Better than the Pagani Design PD1661, better than the Steel Dive SD1953, better than the San Martin SN017G. The only one that comes close to it in feel good factor and comfort level is the Submariner S421 Seaman, but that's thicker. So to remind you, the SN017G is 12.7, this is 0.5mm thinner, it beats it. The Submariner S421 Seaman is 12.6mm. This is 0.4mm thinner. It beats it. So this has the edge over the San Martin and it has the edge over the Submariner for the simple reason it is thinner, and it is significantly thinner. It's very impressive to see 12.2mm with an NH35A powered piece. 200 meters. Now, usually NH35A powered pieces would have bubble back case backs, and we'll look at the case back in detail shortly. But point is, on wrist, this is noticeably lower profile than a PD1661. It is noticeably lower profile than an SD1953, and it's even noticeably lower profile than an SN017G. It sits flatter on the wrist. And this will apply to you regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively. You can really look and feel this is thinner. The 12.2 is incredibly thin. 0.5mm thinner than an SN017G. This is even 0.4mm thinner than the S421. And you can see just how flat the case back is. The undercuts to the flanks, they sit very snug to the wrist. We don't have this large gap. For example, with a PD1661, it sits up like this. And with the SD1953, it also sits up like this. There's this huge gap beneath the undercuts to the flanks because it has the deep bubble back case back, which is often a characteristic of low-tier Chinese pieces powered by the NH35A because they use a very deep case back, regardless of whether they're 200 or 300 meters. This has a much flatter case back. And the benefit of that is just look how snug the undercuts to the flanks are. This isn't a tall, thick, slab-sided piece. The flanks are very thin, like a Rolex. Better fit. It really does have the edge over the aforementioned. The only one that comes close to it in terms of fit and comfort level is the Submariner S421 Seaman. I previously reviewed the Starbucks version, and at 12.6 that does come close to it, but this is still 0.4 thinner. You can see the benefit of the female pivotal end links. Had they used male end links, that would have been an incorrect choice because male end links would have extended the effective lug to lug of the end links in the bracelet, because if they'd used male end links, you could see the end link in the oyster style bracelet would stick out like this, and then you'd have this large abhorrent gap beneath the end link in the oyster style bracelet. Female pivotal end links allow the end link in the bracelet to articulate. It can pivot closer to the tips of the lugs, and therefore it closes up the gap beneath the bracelet and the wrist, and it gives a better fit. Visually looks more aesthetically pleasing because with male end links, and I'll level this criticism at Rolex, for example my Starbucks has it and also my 16610, they have a rectangle in the centre of the male end link like a slab of 316L grade stainless steel. Well, on the Rolex it's 904L, but the point is they don't look visually as aesthetically pleasing and they don't allow the end link to pivot. This is good and I really like it. They deserve credit. They've got it correct. The articulation is good, fit is good, comfort level is good. Female pivotal end links are the correct choice versus male end links. Perfection personified taper, beautiful luster. It's fantastic. This looks good from every angle. Now, needless to say, this will easily slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. You'll know this from my previous reviews. 13mm and below is the sweet spot because anything below 13 will easily slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. This is only 12.2. It is 0.8mm below the sweet spot. At 12.2, this will easily slip underneath a shirt cuff because it's so flat. It's just fantastic. In terms of comfort level and feel good factor, it has the edge over the SN017G. In terms of comfort level and feel good factor, it has the edge over the S421. It feels and looks noticeably thinner and lower profile. Now, with regards to heft, it's 154 grams, but bear in mind, this has a very long bracelet, and this will fit up to a very large 9-inch wrist. Even I would remove 4 links from this bracelet to size it for my 8-inch wrist, and that would remove the heft or delete it from 154 down to circa 145 to 150. So, in terms of heft, for a 40mm Submariner Date Homage, 150 and below is the sweet spot, with a solid oyster style bracelet and a solid mill clasp. So, this is 154, it's 4 grams above the sweet spot, but I'm not going to be critical because it does have a long bracelet. If you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist, you're going to be removing 6 to 8 links. If you have a 7 to 8 inch wrist, you're going to be removing 4 to 6 links. And in both cases, that will delete the heft down to circa 135 to 145 grams respectively. With a 20 to 16 perfection personified taper, it's very easy to get this down below 150, which is the sweet spot for comfort level and feel good factor. In terms of curvature of the clasp, this is good. Now, subjectively, one could be critical and say, well, this is not as good as the glide lock style clasp on the S421, and that's true. That is good because it has on-the-fly adjustment. But curvature is good, particularly for smaller wrist sizes. I would say this actually has the edge over the San Martin SN017G clasp, and you might think that's a surprise because that's a longer clasp and, of course, more micro adjustment. But the problem with that clasp is it's very wide, very thick and very bulky. It's okay on a larger 7 to 8 inch wrist, but the SN017G clasp is very wide and bulky and sticks out very proud from the wrist. And the problem is if you have a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches, you get overhang because the San Martin clasp is long, and therefore it never curves around the wrist as well. The curvature on this one is good. Now bear in mind it is on my large 8-inch wrist and we are on the maximum position 4 extension, but curvature is good. It's not too wide, it's not too long, and it's not too bulky. And it does suffice because we have 4 micro adjustments in the flanks, easy to adjust with a spring bar tool externally. And the only thing I'd like to see is a half link on the 6 and a half link on the 12 side. And of course they could lengthen the clasp and have 4 or 5 micro adjustments. Sorry, instead of the 4 micro adjustments they could have 5 or 6. But looks good, beautiful luster to it. It's not too bulky, works very well. So comfort level is fantastic, feel good factor is fantastic. 12.2, my favourite aspect of it, and I really like everything about it. It does feel more comfortable. So let's look at the case back because this is how they reduce the thickness of this piece. So bubble back case back, but you can see, just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus on it. This is thinner. It still does provide 200 meters of hermetic seal, but it's noticeably lower profile than the case back used on the SN017G and also the S421. It's not as deep and it's not as thick. This is much thinner than the Pagani Design PD1661 Exhibition case back, which only provides 100 meters. That's glazed with mineral crystal. It's noticeably thinner than the SD1953 case back, which is very deep and very thick, but of course that does provide 300 meters, so of course it's thicker. So solid 316L grade stainless steel, longitudinal brushed satin finishing to the center section, which has a beautiful luster. Circumference is mirror polished and the outer circumference is coin edge finished. Nice large chamfer which deletes the tip of the coin edge teeth, and the outer circumference, the very edge of it, is concentric CNC lathe tool machined. In terms of finishing and profiling, it's very similar to the Rolex Submariner Date 116610LN case back, which this is an homage to. And I really like how low profile it is. In terms of the profile of it, in terms of how deep it is, it visually looks and feels very similar to a 116610LN case back, the Submariner Date case back. Excellent. I really like it. They deserve credit for it because this is not a deep bubble back case back. It is noticeably thinner than the SN017G and the S421 case backs, and this is how they've slimmed it down. They've made this piece thinner than the SN017G, which is 12.7, and the S421, which is 12.6, simply by slimming down the profile of the bubble back case back. They've made it thinner, and you can see the depth. This is the kind of low profile case back one would expect with an HK Precision Technology PT5000 powered piece or a Miyota caliber 9015 powered piece, because they're thinner calibers and they have lower handset kites on the Canon pinion. So therefore, with thinner calibers, you can reduce the crystal, can be closer to the dial and handset, but you can also use a thinner case back because the rotors on the PT5000 and the 9015 require less clearance. The NH35A is a thicker caliber. The handset kite is taller, but the other thing is the rotor needs more clearance. It's a thicker movement. So often the case backs are deep and bubble back profile to provide adequate clearance, regardless of whether they are 200 or 300 metres. This one is more like a case back I'd expect to see on a PT5000 or in a 9015 power piece. That's how flat it is. Comfort level and feel good factor enhanced as a result. Female Putillen links are a good tight fit to the head of the piece, deburred and chamfered very well. And the underside to the head of the piece is concentric CNC lathe tool machined to an excellent standard. Nice large bevels on the edges to the case. The only negatives, that's there's room for refinement. If you look at the tips of the lugs, just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus on it. If you look at the tips of the lugs, the four corners, they've got sharp edges. Now they are beveled, but not enough. So they could deburr the corners, the tips of them, to a better standard. That's the one sharp edge, just the corners, the tips, the outer corners. So they need to deburr them better on all four corners, because the four corners do exist on all four lugs. I checked all four. Just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus. This is better done on the S421. They put bevels on the corners and that deletes the sharp corners. But I would say it's equal to the finishing to the head of the piece on the corners of the lugs to the San Martin SN017G. They also have sharp corners. It's not as good as on a Rolex Submariner Dates 116610LN. They have better deburring on the corners, as one would expect. So undercuts to the flanks are good, but they just need to deburr the corners better. So I'd regard the finishing to the corners of the lugs as equal to the San Martin, but I would say not quite as good as the S421 made by Suges. Right, so let's do a Lume test and we'll see how the Lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, stellar performance. This has not disappointed. To put this into perspective, this is equal quality to the BGW9 used on the SN017G. It's equal quality to the BGW9 used on the S421. No discernible difference. The Lume pip on the ceramic bezel insert has 6 layers. The applied indices have 6 layers. The Mercedes handset have 6 layers. This has the edge over the S421 in daylight, as I've detailed, because that has a slight lemon or cream tone to the indices and the hands. It doesn't look pure white. Now, the colour tone match is good. On the Lume pip, the dial and the hands on the S421, they both look the same tone, but it's not pure white, as per a Rolex Submariner Date 116610LN, which this is an homage to. San Martin do it better with the SN017G because on the Lume pip, the dial and the hands, it's whiter, it's purer, more like a Submariner Date which uses chrome lights. So with this one, the D100, I think it's equal. In terms of daylight, it looks whiter, more like the SN017G. In the dark, it has the same blue tone in all three places on the Lume pip, the applied indices, and also the Mercedes handset. In terms of potency of the exciter, it's equal to the SN017G, it's equal to the S421, there's no discernible difference. And in terms of performance, it really is similar to Rolex Chromalites, which has the same blue tone to BGW9. We're clearly not looking at the cross-cutting measure of 2 to 3 layers or 3 to 4 layers on the Lume pip, the dial and the hands. We're looking at 5 to 6 in all three places. I think this is a full 6. And it's fantastic. Maxi dial style layouts, as per the Submariner Dates 116610, so nice large indices. Mercedes handsets are correct. Mercedes handset is correctly proportioned. Lume pip is correctly proportioned. Symmetry is good. I like everything about it. Blue tone is aesthetically pleasing. This is stellar BGW9. So it's a level above the PD1661, which uses weak luminova. It's equal to the SD1953, which actually has stellar performance. That has a fully lumed ceramic bezel insert. One has to give credit to Steel Die for that. In terms of which has the edge, it really is equal to the SN017G, it's equal to the S421. There's no discernible difference. In potency of the exciter, colour tone match. In daylight, the colour tone match is better, and in daylight, the colour than the S421. It's equal quality colour tone match to the SN017G. In daylight, it's whiter. So I think they've done a fantastic job. I'm pleased to see no cost-cutting measures, and it really is a nice even application on the Lume pip, the applied indices, and the Mercedes hands. They don't look lighter or darker in all three places. Potency of the exciter is equal. So we're looking at a full 6 layers in all three places. Fantastic. Very good for a low-tier Chinese piece to see no production cost-cutting measures. This is many levels above the PD1661. It's a level above the SD1953. And I would say the colour tone match in daylight is better done than the S421 because that's more lemon or cream toned, not pure white. San Martin do it better, that's pure white. This is equal to the San Martin SN017G, pure white. And pure blue in the dark, you can see. Fantastic. Right, so let's discuss the movement used. So, you'll all be familiar with the Seiko NH35A automatic. Seiko produce the NH35A in 2 plants by TMI. And they make the NH35A in Seiko. They make the NH35A in Japan and also Malaysia. So Milifortic, like San Martin and like Suges, they are using the Malaysian versions of the TMI made NH35A. So it's been in production since 2015. So it's a reliable, well-proven workhorse Malaysian-made caliber. Has 24 joules. It runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. Has hand winding and hacking, which use for complications, and they work well as I've demonstrated. Quick set date complication works well. 41-hour power reserve is perfectly acceptable. Stated accuracy of the NH35A is -20 to +40 seconds per day, so rather wide accuracy range. However, I'm pleased to report that Milifortic are doing a good job of regulating the NH35As they're using in 5 positions. This one is running consistently at +5 seconds per day. +5 is well within the stated -20 to +40, which is excellent. +5 is actually within chronometer grade accuracy. So usually the NH35A has a stated accuracy of -20 to +40, but usually it's often well regulated between + and -10. That's nothing unusual. It can easily be regulated to + or -10 in 5 positions. It can also be regulated even better to chronometer accuracy in 5 positions. +5 really is excellent. Milifortic deserve credit because +5 from an NH35A is very accurate. I like the reliability of it. I like it's well proven since 2015. It's been in circulation for a long time and therefore there are no reliability issues reported whatsoever. Feels smooth to manually wind. Hacking works well. Quick set date complication feels good. Nice solid clicking. Feels reliable and robust. Subjectively, the only negative to it, and it is subjective, is the stutter or judder of this 3 Hz sweep, as I've detailed. I prefer the aesthetic look of a 4 Hz sweep from a 9015, for example, or an SW200-1, because it just looks smoother. But for the majority of collectors, this is not detrimental, and I appreciate that they don't mind the stutter or judder of a 3 Hz sweep. That is just the way it is with the NH35A. One has to accept it. So, movement is the correct choice at this price point. And just to remind you, it is incredibly impressive for Milifortic to get this down to 12.2. San Martin could not do it with the NH35A and 200 meters with the SN017G. They could only get it down to 12.7. Suges could not do it with the S421 Seaman with the NH35A. That is 300 meters, but it's 12.6. This is NH35A powered. It's 200 meters, but it is only 12.2. This is actually 0.2 millimeters thinner than my Rolex Starbucks. It is incredible. If this were PT5000 powered, or if it were 9015 powered, I would not be so impressed with 12.2 because it is possible to do it with a lower profile caliber. But with the NH35A, Milifortic are the first dive watch brand to make a 200 meter dive piece with the NH35A and only 12.2. It is 0.5 millimeters thinner than the San Martin SN017G. It is 0.4 millimeters thinner than the Suges S421 Seaman. It is 0.2 millimeters thinner than my Rolex Starbucks. That is just incredible for a low-tier Chinese-made piece. 12.2 is very thin. Fantastic. So for that reason alone, I'm going to give it the edge over the SN017G, and I'm going to give it the edge over the S421 because it's thinner. Above all else, the comfort level and the feel-good factor are enhanced. The thinner a piece is, the lower profile it is, the flatter it sits on the wrist, regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7 or a 7 to 8 inch wrist. This enhances the comfort level. This enhances the feel-good factor of the piece. When you're wearing the piece for long periods of time, as a daily wear piece for 8 to 12 hours per day, you can really feel the benefit of it being low profile and thin. 12.2. This is not a thick slab of 316L grade stainless steel. It doesn't feel like a PD1661 or an SD1953, like a thick block of stainless steel with a bubble back case back that makes it stand up off the wrist. This is low profile at 12.2. It's fantastic. So it's a stellar piece. Looks good, feel good. It has the edge over the SN017G, has the edge over the S421, just because it's thinner at 12.2. So lastly, I'm going to summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch for my channel, the watch meets two criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So low tier piece, $199 US, which is €172. Yes, this is unquestionably excellent quality, and yes, it is unquestionably excellent value. At €172, this cannot be beaten. We have a new king. This is the heavy hitter. The Milifortic D100 has the edge over the San Martin SN017G. It has the edge over the Suges S421 Seaman. It's a better piece. It's thinner. It's 12.2. It cannot be beaten for the price point. I'm going to declare it a champagne watch for lemonade money. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Milifortic D100. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.